2022, we were just talking as a culmination of a lot of small things that turned into kind of big things for Pelzer. I know some of the most visible things are y'all did a lot of work on the community center and Monkey Park, and let's just talk a little bit about that, what happened this year.
Sure. Well, you know, we come to the end of the year. It's always a time to reflect on what has been accomplished, but for me, it's more exciting to think about what is coming. But this past year, we saw a variety of projects started and also completed. Yes, we are working on our community building, and that has finally started, that process. I'm very excited about that. It is a process that I have never experienced before. We are pursuing historic tax credits. So if you're familiar with Pelzer, the Pelzer Heritage Commission did us a real good favor by creating an historic district several years ago. And that district extends to the Monkey Park. Fortunately, because it's there, we will need to expand that area to cover the Wilson Cemetery in the Monkey Park, and then right beside that is the community building, because the structure needs to be part of the National Register of Historic Places. And if you have a building within a historic district, then it automatically is a part of that registry. So that is something that we learned. We also voted to hire Kyle Campbell of Preservation South to be our consultant and apply for those historic tax credits. He is kind of the go-to guy when it comes to historic preservation in the upstate. He has won multiple awards and worked on some pretty significant projects in this area, in the county and elsewhere, and so we're excited to have him. We are taking off all of the vinyl siding that was put on the community building around 1991, and that's the first step. We cannot apply for the historic tax credits until we get rid of all the outside vinyl and expose as much of the original building as we can. So that process has started, and it's so good to finally see something happening with the community building.
That can be an important building for this community, right? I mean,
that building is Pelzer, you know? What makes Pelzer unique from other towns in the upstate, I would say, is, for one thing, is that we do have a history and evidence of a thriving history. And we want to capitalize on that. We want to save and preserve what's left of our historic buildings. Pelzer has lost so much over the years, and so many beautiful buildings were torn down. So I see it as our job as a small town government to do all we can to save these buildings, especially the ones that we own, obviously. So yes, it's going to be something special. And it's really important for us to finish this job to the end and do a perfect job to prove to the folks who live here that they can trust us when we start talking about ideas and visions, because, you know, folks here in Pelzer have been promised a lot in the past by various people and organizations, and much of it has never come true. And so they are hesitant to get excited about new ideas and promises and plans and pictures. But I think that once we see this through to the end and make this something special that we can all be proud of, then I think that's going to be a great kickstart to what we've been calling the Pelzer comeback.
Well, talking about special and old buildings that were saved and are being used, we haven't talked a lot about it, but we're sitting here in one of those buildings right now. Let's talk a bit about how this building was given new life and about the Milltown players, because honestly, a lot of people that I know, particularly people who have not lived in Anderson a long time or don't know this part of the county, what they know about Pelzer is Milltown players.
Yes, sir.
So tell people how this kind of came to be over the years, because I know this year, we'll talk about this year too, but this building has been a real important part of the rebirth of Pelzer and like you're talking about, kicking off new stuff.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because we have worked really hard to build this community theater up to where it is today. And a lot of folks do come to this theater to begin with because it is an historic structure built over 100 years ago, and has, as you can see, a balcony and lots of seats. And so there's a quaint charm to this structure, and which goes along with the town. There's an appeal to that. But you know, I have taken all of my experience and contacts and resources and piled it into this idea of Milltown Players. And I thought it would work, but I didn't realize how quickly and how big of a thing it would be over the years. I never expected it. And it really, I don't even know how it happened, to be honest, Greg. You know, I was teaching at Woodmont High School, and we were doing some great things over there, and I thought, I would love to start a community theater with a unique mission that would produce high-quality performances at an affordable cost. Now, that is almost impossible to do because it is so expensive to put on a show. I was doing some number crunching yesterday, and we spent on average for a production here in Pelzer $28,000 to put on a show. People don't realize that. That's what it costs to put on a show, $28,000. And our ticket prices are still the cheapest in the area, and I'm really proud of that. I want it to be the cheapest in the area with the highest quality that we can create. And so I just stumbled upon this opportunity where, you know, I grew up in this area in Anderson 1, went to all the Wren schools, and some of my former teachers at Wren kind of made their way up to the district office, so to speak, and they called me and said, hey, we hear you're wanting to start a group, and we have this beautiful old auditorium that nobody's using, and we'd love to see something happen there for this community. And from what I understand, I had not moved here then, but when they closed Pelzer Elementary and consolidated with West Pelzer Elementary for financial reasons around the what they called the Great Recession, around '08, something like that, this building went vacant because, as you know, this was Pelzer Elementary's auditorium before we came in. And there was nothing happening here. The school district even offered to give this building to the town, if you could even imagine. And at that time, the town said that they didn't want it because they didn't have a use for it, didn't want to maintain it, didn't want to run an entertainment complex. And as you can see today, every town in the upstate either has one or has plans to get one, either a city-owned venue or an amphitheater. But so we really lucked out, and they said, we'll give you the same deal as we give the adult education next door. So we have a great deal on this space, which enabled us to such affordable prices. And we started out with $10 tickets, with $8 for seniors and $7 for students. And we kept that for the first 4 years, and then raised our prices by $2, and we now charge $12 and $10 for seniors, military, and students. And we've tried to hang on as long as we could to those prices, and it's been tough. You know, surviving the pandemic was almost didn't happen. Folks don't realize that theaters were the first to shut down and the last to reopen. And so for 16 months, we had no income. And if it wasn't for those government grants, we'd be done, we'd be over. So post-pandemic world is different, very different. We've been struggling to build back the audiences we enjoyed and didn't fully appreciate before the pandemic. And it's been a struggle to get there again and to keep our prices so low, but we did add a higher processing fee because we are paying so many people just to do business. You know, you have to pay a company to process the tickets and then a middle person to pass them on to the credit card people, and you know, we don't even get to keep the $12. And so we're doing all we can to keep those prices low. But like I said, the post-pandemic era is very different. The audiences have been smaller, but the people who have come have absolutely loved it. There's no shortage in quality. In fact, we try to increase the quality across the board and challenge ourselves all the time. How could that have been better? How can this be even better next time? We're always asking ourselves that, and I think that people come to appreciate that. And so this month has been very good to us.
I'm going to say you said smaller crowds until December, and now the crowds were...
Until December. Well, I'll tell you what, Greg, like I said before, there's so many other municipalities who want Milltown players in their town or some other group like that. And if I may go off on a little bit of a tangent, because I am deeply involved with the entire upstate theater scene, we're seeing groups and new venues form. I mean, you've all heard about, in recent history, the success of the Walhalla Auditorium, the Malden Cultural Center, Abbeville Opera House. They've done some work down there. And it's exciting to see these things happen. People who come to this area in the upstate are just astounded by the quantity of theater options, live, local performances, not even including music, but plays and musicals. They're just astounded by it, and we're special in that way, that for Greenville, Anderson, the surrounding areas, for a place our size, nobody has this kind of infusion of theatrical happening. So we're thankful for that. But what do you do when you survive a pandemic as a small, affordable community theater? Well, first of all, you thank the Lord. Secondly, what you don't do is expand, which is exactly what we did. We expanded to Simpsonville this past summer, and they renovated their old school, elementary school, which was originally built in 1939 for Simpsonville High School. So again, another old Milltown High School auditorium. And they said, we want you to be our resident theater company. And I had tried to do this before, and it didn't quite work out. We tried in the past to expand first to Fountain Inn. That fell through. We tried to expand to Easley. That fell through. And so I was a little wary about Simpsonville at first. I thought, when's this hammer going to drop? You know, is this actually going to happen? Because this was my last chance. I was like, listen, if this doesn't work, that's 3 strikes for me. I'm not going to ever expand again or try to. But it was a real struggle at first to open a second, basically 2 theater companies at once. I mean, doubling our output and having to hire full-time folks, just taking it to the next level. And we chose some shows that weren't quite as mainstream as maybe we should have to get things started, and so the attendance there was tough at first. We were losing a lot of money. And then a Christmas miracle, 2 Christmas miracles. Jingle Bell Rock here in Pelzer. Oh my goodness. What a great show. And what a great story, because this show was supposed to happen last year, but we had to cancel it because of a COVID outbreak in the cast. We canceled it a day before opening night. It was so sad, but we packed it all away and brought it right back out again. And the new larger cast and band, and golly, it was so good. And people just loved it. And they came from all over. I mean, you know, to be living across the street here in our town and walking over here and seeing a busload of people who arrived an hour early and from Gaffney, you know, like, you have to kind of check yourself and think, is this really happening? And it is. People come to Pelzer from all over, from outside the state, like on a regular basis. In the Hendersonville area, North Carolina, and then Hartwell, Georgia, Rock Hill, and all over the upstate. And it just amazes me that, and they come in busloads. And so the Christmas show was good to us. Jingle Bell Rock here in Pelzer, and then Simpsonville had a sold-out run of the best Christmas pageant ever. Sold out every single night. Could not believe it. So this month in December, we played to over 7,400 people in 1 month, which has got to be some kind of a record for a South Carolina community theater. But I was doing some number crunching last night, and I made a post today because I just had to share it. You know, even though it's been tough for us to get back to where we were this year in 2022, over 30,000 people saw a Milltown Players show, which, to put that in perspective, is greater than the population of Anderson. And that is hard to believe, that a simple idea, a good idea with a good plan of high quality shows, affordable prices, and lots of seats in a great little town like Pelzer is a formula for success, even when facing the greatest of challenges. So I am very proud of what we've done. I've never worked this hard in my life, but I'm most excited about the future and where we take it, because we're never going to sit still. We're never going to tread water. We're going to keep on climbing to see how far we can go, because, like I always say, the sky is the limit. So
you've received regional and national awards for the work y'all done here too.
we have. We have won our state, won that competition 3 times. And we won the regional competition once. And we got to travel to the national competition for community theaters in 2019. And we were we are one of 2 South Carolina theaters to have ever done that. And the last one was about 35 years prior. So it was a milestone for all of us to take our production, our little old production from Pelzer, all the way to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We were one of 2 teams from the Southeast. And to see our little, our name up on the big screen that said Milltown Players, Pelzer, South Carolina, I thought, is this real life? Is this happening? Are we here on the national stage? And I'll tell you a funny story. You know, we've got a Goodwill that opened up here in Pelzer a couple years ago, and I spoke to the leadership of Goodwill in the upstate and told them this story. So we were doing Romeo and Juliet, right? Unique, high concept production where we set it in the 1800s in Appalachia, as if the Capulets and Montagues were actually the Hatfields and the McCoys. I'd always wanted to try this because, you know, they say that the Appalachian dialect is the closest thing that exists today to the real Shakespearean actors of the time. Excuse me. So I wanted to try that out to see how that language would blend with the Appalachian dialects of our ancestors, and some of the words fit pretty well, like yonder. But anyway, we were getting close to our dress rehearsal week, and I had a costumer, very talented, but she didn't quite understand that we had deadlines, right? So I looked at what we had. It was dress rehearsal week. I think it might have been even a Monday. And we opened that Friday. And we didn't have costumes. And so I went and took 2 days and drove all over the upstate. I hit every Goodwill. And I was buying stuff. I didn't even have measurements. I was like, yeah, that looks good. Give me that vest. Give me that pair of pants, that shirt, that coat, mostly for the men. And I just bought a bunch of stuff, and I brought it back, and I'll never forget this. I said, all right, line up. Come here. Had a friend of mine, who's a costumer. I said, all right, put this on, put this on, put this on. I said, you like the way this looks? Yes. Okay, great. That's your costume. Next. So we costumed the thing, with thrift store clothes, and we tattered them up and painted them to look like they were, dirty and worn, like from the 1800s and whatnot. But the best part is, we throw this thing together. Nobody knows what you go through when you put on a show. We won best costumes at the national competition. I could not believe it. I thought, y'all don't know the story, and I'm not going to tell you. So it just goes to show that, you can do anything. If you set your mind to it, and you're motivated, and you got the creativity. I've always said that talent does not know a zip code. And even if you have limited resources, you can throw something together and be recognized at the national level.
And that's why I wanted to talk so much about, because we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Milltown players. And as mayor, it really is a strong identity for this community. I mean, it gives you something to talk about too when you're talking to other mayors. One of the things that, like you said, other communities want, particularly even Anderson doesn't have an auditorium like this.
Right.
I mean, the city of Anderson, as big as it is, somebody tore down all the auditoriums.
That's right.
For years.
That's right.
And so you have as mayor, this is a very strong identifier and a way to promote the town.
Greg, this is really a gem for us, and I promote it as the historic Pelzer Auditorium. I don't promote it as Milltown Players. We are the theater company that exists within this building. This building doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to any one group. It was built by the mill for the people. And so that's how I like to see it. I don't see this as my property. I see it as the town's, because it was for so long, and it should continue to be that way. But it really is a gem for us. And a lot of other people are capitalizing on the traffic, on the tourism that comes here, because they will go to nearby restaurants that are appealing to them and spend their money there, such as the Saluda River Grill in Piedmont. The manager told me, he said, we have your schedule. And we put more people on the shift for those days because we know it's a show night, because we know when everybody's going to show up and they all leave about the same time because they got to go catch the show in Pelzer. And
do you have a new bed and breakfast open too here?
we hope that's going to happen. We haven't seen any progress on that, but
Proposed, I guess.
proposed, right? There is a couple of Airbnbs. One's going to open right down the street here, and one is already in the works in West Pelzer. So that's going to be good. And I'm going to also share that information because it's hard to believe, but last year we had over 500 people travel here from over 50 miles away, which is unheard of. So if they have a place to stay and a really good place to eat, that's going to make that experience even better. So, I love it. I'm very proud of Milltown Players. I hope that everybody in Pelzer is too. I am a huge cheerleader for this town. I know the potential that it has. I know its grand history. Our location is really important to us, because I learned that very quickly, that when I saw that most of our patrons here in Pelzer came from largely 4 places: Greenville, Anderson, Easley, and Simpsonville, which is along that 30-minute radius from where we are. Pelzer is about 30 minutes from anywhere you really want to be. And it's also sitting here on Highway 8, which if you go that way becomes 418 to Fountain Inn and 385. If you go this way, it connects to 85. So this is a cut through for a lot of people, and we see a lot of traffic. And so Milltown Players has become synonymous with Pelzer over the past 8 years. And wherever I go, when we say Pelzer, they say, "Oh yeah, I see plays there." And that makes me, of course, very proud. But as mayor, it's also going to be my job to add to that association of not just coming to see my shows, but having other things that people say when they say, "Oh, Pelzer, oh yeah, that's where blank." What else can we add to that statement besides just excellent entertainment at affordable prices? We got a lot of things in the works, a lot of things that we're dreaming of and wanting to plan. I'm naturally an impatient person, and I can't stand moving so slowly. But that's just the way it is in government, and I'm trying to pick up the pace on some things that I want to see done. I'm very excited for 2023, and I look forward to meeting with my council and involving the community and setting forth some real goals with some benchmark deadlines, because a month flies by like you wouldn't believe, and you think, "Oh gosh, have we done enough this month?" And of course the answer for me is always no. You can never do enough. But to come back to what you were saying, ran into my good buddy Rocky Burgess, mayor of Williamston, last night, and he was saying how he was at he's part of the Appalachian Council of Governments, and he was up there in Simpsonville. The mayor and the city manager was bragging all about Milltown Players and the new Simpsonville Arts Center. And Rocky said, "Yeah, I know that guy." So,
We're talking about the first part, and we've talked about highly visible, entertaining things. Sometimes the grinding wheels of government are not highly visible and are not nearly as entertaining. And I know one of the things you're talking about is the water and infrastructure. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure thing. Well, Greg, I'll tell you, the thing that Pelzer residents have always complained about first in the past has been the price of the water bill. Our water bills are too high. What can you do about that? It's always the first question they ask whenever we were asked about what our plans were. How do you lower my water bill? There's a lot of people in Pelzer who live on a fixed income, and that is something that affects them every day, every month. And so in doing our research and figuring out how do we do this and how do we improve services, we did one big thing, was we sold our sewer system to REWA, which immediately dropped the cost of the bills. Haven't heard many complaints in a long time, which is great. Now that is kind of a win-lose situation when you're selling your systems, because as many people already know, Pelzer does not have property taxes as a municipality. We are not allowed to because of Act 388, which is a law passed in Columbia many years ago that was changing the way public schools are funded, but in the wording, it basically said that if you don't have taxes, you're not going to be able to levy them ever, because any percentage of zero is going to be zero. So Pelzer and Star are the two municipalities that fall under that category. We don't have taxes. Everybody else does, okay? So the water bill, the rates were set long before I came to town, and they were set in a way that there was enough funding to fund operations for the town. We've never had a police force in recent history, an official town police force. We don't have a municipal court. I've never had business licenses, which is going to change this year. So Pelzer, because it was under the leadership of the mill and whoever operated the mill at the time, there was a lot of reliance on our own government. And as you know, the town was incorporated in 1952 and was only like 4 streets for the longest time, until we did the mass annexation in 2015 through referendum, where we went from like 90 people to 1,300 overnight with a vote, okay? So we're coming up on a very important time, which is how do we move forward and improve our infrastructure and systems and also pay for it? So the big question that we're going to have to make a decision on in the first part of 2023 is this. Will the town of Pelzer sell our water system to Greenville Water? That's the big question. We have been talking with Greenville Water for a long time. They have proposed a contract for sale. And what does this mean? Okay, well, I'll tell you. It means that Greenville Water would own and operate everything having to do with our water. What is good about that? Well, here's the thing. Our lines are 75 years old. They are old and corroded. And like many towns, we experienced a lot of leaks this past Christmas weekend. We have had all sorts of trouble with our water tower in the past, not operating the way it should. And the water lines are antiquated. And we have so many fire hydrants, most of which were installed in the 40s and the 50s. We cannot afford to pay for the upgrade of our system. $6.9 million would bring Pelzer's water system up to standard of today's standards. And we don't have that money. We never will. And so we could try and piece together some grants and throw the burden of that cost on the residents again, who already were paying for our upgraded sewer system, raising the water bills again. We just can't do all that. We can't do it. And we only have 2 employees that are our maintenance department. 2 people, that's it. And they have to come out, they're on call all the time. They were out here with me Christmas Eve night dealing with water issues. And Greenville Water has all the resources and equipment and personnel to handle everything. And they are applying for a big $10 million ARPA grant, which I'm pretty sure they're going to get, to not only upgrade our system, but also to expand it and connect it with the area around us. We're very glad to be on Greenville Water. But other things they're going to do is to create what they call redundancy. So if a section needs to be shut down, you're not affecting most of the town. You know, they've got another source where that water can come from while they're fixing a problem. So I think it's a good idea. I think that we will have improved services. We will not have to spend a dime of the residents' money to do it. We can be free of the maintenance costs of our water system and focus on the other projects that we always wish we could get to, quality of life concerns. So for the residents, it's a huge win. That, paired with the sale of the sewer system, will bring down everybody's bills on average about 30%. I mean, that's a significant amount. And so that's our answer. Like, how do you lower my water bill? Well, we're going to do it. We're doing it, finally. 30%, a third almost, you know. Some will have more than others. So we're excited for that. Better services, better system, less money being spent by the residents. But then the next question is, where does the town's revenue come from, right? If we've just done away with all the income we had from our sewer and water systems, how do we pay for things? That's the big question. Now, I've learned a lot in my short time on council, and we are funded by a variety of sources. But the big things we are going to be looking at next month, we're going to start business licenses for the town that will create some revenue. Not a lot. They're not going to be expensive. But we're playing catch up to our sister cities, West Pelzer and Williamston. They've had all these things in place for decades. We've never had it. So we're going to be doing that. We're meeting with the Municipal Association to give us some advice on funding sources. There might be a way around Act 388. I hope so, because, you know, the General Assembly will not change that law. They won't amend it. Our representatives bring it up every year to say, hey, help us out. We need to be able to have our towns to levy taxes, the right to levy taxes. But they just won't do anything about it, Greg, and it's just been so frustrating, so we're not going to wait for them anymore. We're going to figure out how to be the masters of our own destiny here in Pelzer and put the least amount of the cost burden on our citizens for maximum results. So we've got some ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act. Every town receives some, and it's significant. It's a lot of money. So what we're trying to do is to put it to use in a way that we're going to create added revenue for Pelzer. And part of the reason we are renovating the community building first is because once that is done, that will be a highly desirable, appealing, mid-sized venue. And I want to do it right. I want it to be perfect. And one thing I'm excited about, to have that community building reopened, is that we have had the grand opening of a very special business right down the street here. It was the old Pelzer Presbyterian Church, built in 1883, and the structure itself is the only remaining original church in Pelzer. It was bought by this wonderful couple who has spent a lot of time, energy, and money on this structure, and this building, and has created a wedding chapel venue and events as well. They have done that place up. You got to go check it out. You got to go interview them. Selena and Thomas, great people, community-minded. We've had a lot of good conversations, and they had their grand opening, their ribbon-cutting ceremony recently, and we're so excited for them. Levy Street, wedding chapel, and events. So check them out. That's a big deal for Pelzer. And the thing that Selena was telling me is, you know, one of her challenges is that there isn't a large venue or building that's attached to that church for a nice, sizable wedding reception. And I said, well, hey, I may have your answer. I hope that once we have finished the renovation of the community building, that will be the place where they can have their wedding reception. So you can have a lovely wedding here in Pelzer in a historic Victorian chapel, and then enjoy a nice wedding reception within walking distance in a newly renovated historic structure. Hopefully we'll be renaming it something like Pelzer Hall. I think that would be nice.
You mentioned quality of life issues. I know, you know, Pelzer had the first Blue Trail ADA kayak launch.
Yes.
And you were talking about trails. Talk about how trails is a part of the plans for the future.
Oh boy, I think about trails every day. We all know, everybody knows the benefit of a trail system to a community. Oh man, everybody I talk to, they're just dying to have a trail. Every municipality in this county, and the county then wants to link all the town trails together. Very smart. All you have to say is Swamp Rabbit Trail. I've said that 1,000 times. Everybody references the rebirth that they have discovered along that trail and in Travelers Rest. And that trail, of course, is coming down south. And who knows, maybe one day we can hook up with our trails in Anderson County with the Doodle Trail in Pickens County and the Swamp Rabbit in Greenville County. But in the meantime, we want to figure out what we're going to do in Pelzer. Now, let me tell you something. Pelzer is such a unique place in that we have so much green space. So much. And we're about to get more. We also have a river. We are directly on the Saluda River, which is one of the state's major rivers. And like our friends to the north, Piedmont, we were formed right on the banks of the Saluda. We've got about 3 miles of riverfront property that I'm doing all I can to secure for the town, either through gift, purchase, permanent easement, whatever we got to do. We got to get that done. And we got to get it done sooner rather than later. It's so important. But I have mapped out ideas for where this trail system would go. I don't want it to be just a perimeter trail or just a trail from here to there. A system of trails that interlocks all the communities in Pelzer in every way we can find. That's my vision. I don't want to just have, something you expect, but something you don't expect. I want to visit all these trails that are established and find out what works for them and steal those good ideas and try to make ours even better. So if you look at Pelzer, we are kind of vertically aligned, okay? You have Levy Street, Highway 8, kind of separating things. You've got the lower Mill Village, the upper Mill Village, and then the middle section, right? And oftentimes those 3 sections don't really connect as they could. I think a trail system would encourage people to get outside, to meet their neighbors, and also be able to go from point A to point B without getting in a car. You can walk there, you can run, you can on a bicycle. So instead of just having a perimeter, I want to see everything kind of weaving in between so that we have greater connectivity, as they say. We want to be connected.
Speaking of the mill site, any updates on the progress there, or the stuff they're doing down there?
There are no updates on the mill sites. Everything that was planned and announced has been put on hold, from what I understand. I don't know what is going to happen. I've been reaching out to the leadership of the Pelzer Heritage Commission, and I want to work with them and try to figure out what we can do to help make some amazing things happen. But Pelzer Heritage Commission is also going to help us out. They're giving us a piece of that riverfront property. That was the old dump site for the town, where they put all their trash. Back in the day, the river is where you sent your trash and your waste. And just like the Reedy River in downtown Greenville, you would try to hide it.
You couldn't, because you could smell it.
You could smell it. They built a bridge over it. Not the pedestrian bridge, but a daggum highway bridge. So the Pelzer Heritage Commission has succeeded in securing some huge EPA grants. And that area has been cleaned up, capped, and leveled off, and can be another park for Pelzer. But there's also a section where the trail can go there as well. So we're hoping to work more with them in securing these areas that can become part of the green space, the trail system for Pelzer. Everybody wants more parks and trails, and that's what we're going to do too, because it's available. And you know what? They ain't making any more land. So it's important to us that we make the right decisions of what to do with our land here.
And speaking of that, you said the first quarter you are going to be talking about planning and long-term planning. Is that
Yes, sir.
a big part of the first part of the year?
Oh, yeah. We have finally established our own planning commission for the first time. And next becomes a Board of Zoning Appeals, a group that decides about zoning. So it's come at the exact right time because we have seen a lot of interest in property here for residential construction. And we're very excited about that. We encourage that. But what we don't want to have happen is to have these folks come in who've got dollar signs in their eyes and they want to make the most money any way they possibly can. We want to make sure we're protecting the town and having some smart growth. We don't want people coming in here and buying a lot and chopping it up 5 different ways and shoving tiny things on it just to make more money, because you can make money doing that, obviously, because these old mill towns, you can get those textile tax credits. So it's an incentive for builders to come in and want to buy up lots and build new houses. But we just want to make sure that we have some good ideas for the future, because like I said, you only get one chance. So whatever you have planned, you're going to have to keep for a long time. That's it. That's all you got. So if we want to see a full renaissance and rebirth of this town, we're going to have to dream big and think smart and not just jump at the first thing that comes along. We got to think about it and get some good advice and have these plans in place. Part of my vision for this fiscal year from the beginning was to have some master plans for our current parks. Now we've got wonderful things happening from the county. They are paying for master plans for the Monkey Park and for that Timmerman boat kayak launch that you mentioned earlier. So the county is footing the bill for those master plans, which we are so thankful for. And our good buddy, my fellow mayor, Blake Sanders, was hired to do that job for all these parks across the county. And that's his specialty, is to design parks and trails. And golly, what an advantage we have to have somebody like that right up the street in West Pelzer. So we're excited to work with him. But we're also going to need some master plans for all the other areas, such as the old ball fields, the historic ball fields, and the area down there by the lower boat ramp and the lower mill. Anywhere else that we see as green spaces, we need to have a plan for that, so that when we do have funding to add new things, we're not just throwing it out there willy-nilly. You know, it's going to be part of the grand scheme of things. Like, hey, we need swings over here. Yes, we do. And this is part of the master plan. So we know how many, where it's going to go, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be connected to a sidewalk or a parking area, those sort of things. So that's something I really want to get accomplished this year, is to make a grand plan for all of our recreational areas. And one thing I'd really like to do, you know, those old ball fields over there on Highway 20, a lot of history there, and it's so sad to see them unused. And I really want to figure out how to bring life back to those ball fields. Everybody who's lived here their whole lives has told me all the wonderful memories they have of that place. And most people don't know this, but Shoeless Joe Jackson, they were from Pickens County. They moved to Pelzer when he was about 6 years old. And he worked in the mill here, right down there in the river, for 6 years. Child labor was a huge part of the mill culture back then, unfortunately. About 25% of the workforce were children. So he worked in the mill. He never learned to read or write because of that. And when he was about 12, the family moved over to Brandon Mill, and he started playing baseball for the mill there and gained some fame. But Joe Jackson had to have picked up a bat and a ball for the first time here in Pelzer, probably on that field. So that's why it's important for us to preserve these areas where all these, the history, the athletic history of the town took place. We can't forget these things. We have to honor what has come before us. That is so important to me. And so the only place that's really used over there in the ball fields currently is the outdoor basketball court over there. When it's warm, guys are out there all the time, all the time. So we know that's a success, and we've got some money given to us to put to use. And I would love to redo that outdoor basketball court and make it top notch. You know, our friends over in Williamston just redid their old tennis courts and built some gorgeous pickleball courts, and also redid their outdoor basketball court. So, you know, we can't let Williamston have all the fun. We got to do some cool stuff here in Pelzer because we want them to enjoy our stuff too. You know, Pelzer for so long has not been number one. You know, we've always kind of been left behind or forgotten, kind of an underdog, and that's exactly where I want to be. I always love cheering for the underdog, and I want Pelzer to be number one in a lot of things, across the board, big and small. I want to have that mentality again. I want us to be proud of what we do here and who we are, and to be the best across the board. You know, people tell me, you know, Pelzer had the best of everything. What was the best at everything? And that can't just be a thing of the past. Just because our industry, in the cotton mill industry, has left us, we can't just give up and say, that's just how it is, and it's always going to be that way. No. No, sir. You know, our story is the same story that's told across the upstate. And it's exciting to think about that our story has not ended, that it will continue. And it's so exciting to be a part of that and to say, okay, yeah, things are kind of slow. We keep talking that there's going to be some changes and some good things happening. And in the meantime, we'll do some small things that you can point to and say that's better. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a different place in about 10 years. And I hope that we will have that restored sense of pride and community. And that, like I said before, when people say Pelzer, they're not only going to talk about, oh yeah, I see really good shows down there, but they're going to mention and list and know the things that we're going to have that are going to be the best out of anybody. I ran into Mayor Knox White in Greenville. We were promoting a show, of course, Jingle Bell Rock, on York, Carolina. Great people. And I had a great conversation with him, you know, and he was genuinely interested in Pelzer and asking me questions and had noticed the things we had done and said, I need to come down there. You can drive me around. I said, yeah, it'd be my honor. I'd love to tell you our story and what has been and what's going to be, and I'd love to have your advice. So that's what's one great thing about serving in this position is that you do have a community of other mayors to rely on. I call up other mayors as frequently as I can to ask those questions because there's no manual on how to be a mayor of a town. Most of us, if we get elected, we don't have the first idea of the logistics of things and who to call for this and what's the rule on this and what am I supposed to do with this over here. So having that community of mayors is so important to us. And I tell you, all the upstate mayors are just top notch. I mean, just great people, friendly, helpful people who believe in their towns and want to do what's best for them. And so, you know, when we work together like that, ultimately we are all going to be benefiting for success, from the success of working together. So that's my message to 2023, for everybody in Pelzer and around Pelzer, we're going to have to work together to realize all of our dreams. And I'm excited about that, yes, Pelzer has amazing potential. But the best thing about Pelzer is not its potential, it's not its location on Highway 8 and 30 minutes from everywhere, Saluda River, Milltown Players, blah, blah, blah. Best thing about Pelzer is the people, okay? And we have seen some great things happen from our people this past year. And I want to mention the original Pelzer Light people, also affectionately self-identified as the golf cart gang. They have taken this upstate treasure, this holiday treasure, and expanded their mission, and they visit nursing homes. I mean, how awesome is that? They provided Christmas trees to children in hospitals. That's so wonderful. Ken Andrews has started a new outreach program down there at the Lower Mill, where he has brought in all of these medical supplies and given them freely to the community. New buddy of mine, Tyler Love, has started a group this past year to improve the monkey park, a service project. So this giving spirit, this giving nature that comes from the residents is just wonderful. And that's something we want to honor and applaud and recognize, but also capitalize on and do more of. You know, when you see somebody who steps up to the plate and says, I will do that, I will make someone else's life better, I will help my neighbor, it is inspiring. And that is something that I have noticed, and that is something that I want to do more of. So as we move into the new year, let's think about what we can do for our neighbors and how we can come together to make this place even more special.